Okay, Sue, I think we're live.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for the reminder. Hi, I'm Sue Strachan. Author. I'm really happy to be here today to talk about my latest book of LSE Press, The Obituary Cocktail. Now, I am a repeat offender in this iconic New Orleans cocktail series. I also wrote the Café Brûlot, and it was published in 2021. So I've done a presentation like this before, but this one doesn't include flames like we did with the Café Brûlot. Uh, the book just came out in July, and it's been a lot of fun working in this series, the iconic New Orleans cocktail series. Well, let's first start with is what is the drink? What is an obituary cocktail? It's what I say to people is gin martini with absinthe. So gin, vermouth, and absinthe. And it's a wonderful concoction, excuse me, of these different flavors that you get from the alcohol. It was invented as some drinks you can trace the origins. Obituary cocktail, it's kind of sort of hazy, but we can trace it to the early 40s through newspaper accounts and books as well of mentioning the drink. And it was invented, as they say, in Café Lafitte's. Now, Café Lafitte's was located in what is now known as Lafitte's blacksmith shop, but back then it was known as Café Lafitte's. Lafitte's blacksmith shop is one of the older buildings in this city, and it has a very interesting history amongst itself. It was not or not that we can tell directly through historical research, anyway related to Jean Lafitte or his brother. But it's a great story. So if you hear people telling it, just go along with it for the ride. That's what half of the fun of New Orleans history is sometimes, though it aggravate historians. Anyhow, so there were three owners. This was the late 1930s. They bought it just as Prohibition been lifted in 1933 as three owners. It was Tom Caplinger and Howard Barthel and Mary Wilson. And two of those owners were gay, and Tom Caplinger was straight. He had his family live above the bar. One of his children ended up being the actress Grace Zabriskie. You may know her from, got a lot of stuff. She's a great character actress, great actress. She was in Seinfeld. She was in The Big Easy. She's been in a lot of things. And if you don't recognize the name, look her up and you'll know, oh, yeah, I know who that is. Anyway, she grew up in the French Quarter back in the day. So it was very much a place of, it was gay friendly in an era when bars were not, you don't have gay bars like you do today in the French Quarter. It wasn't like an Oz, a bourbon pub that you know is gay. It was gay, but it was known in the community that if you were gay, you could go there. Tennessee Williams was a fan of it when he was living in the French Quarter, but it also attracted a very cafe society group of people. So it was very international and sophisticated. And my favorite quote that I found during research was from Ella Brennan, the noted restaurateur. Most people know her from Commander's Palace. And she had worked in the French Quarter with for her brother back then. And her famous quote is, most women go to finishing school. I go to Café Lafitte's. So a lot of international people there, gay, straight, and it was a regular spot showing up in nightlife columns in the newspapers in New Orleans. And while I was once a society editor for the Times-Picayune, not quite the same as in being a nightlife columnist for one of the couple of papers. There's more than one papers back in the 30s and 40s. So you start reading these columnists talking about the drinks, the scene, and not just Café Lafitte's and the scene there, just everywhere. It was one of my favorite part of research is reading all the accounts of what was going on in the French Quarter back in the day. And so, I figured with this drink, they're sitting around drinking and like, what can we do something different with a gin martini? And there may have been like just totally, let's do a gin martini, let's add some absinthe. But if you realize also, absinthe was at that time banned in the US. Ban was not lifted until 2007. And so either it was absinthe was on hand that had been left over, people would bring back absinthe. You also had, in place of it, herb saint, which was created in New Orleans. And then some accounts in newspapers said they used Ohen, which if you are from New Orleans, you know from its prevalency in the Boston Club or the Rex organization. They're not the same, but they're related in a way. And their favorite drink is an Ohen. I don't think it's Ohen. I don't think it's Ohen frappe, but it's Ohen, some of Ohen in it. It was the distilleries in Spain, and back in the this I don't know. This is not my book, but I think it was the 90s, early 2000s. The distillery was going out of business in Sazerac, which is a local manufacturer, locally based manufacturer of spirits, but they have, they distilleries all over the world in the US, bought the recipe. So all the Ohen lovers were happy with Ohen on their drink menu. But Ohen can be used with the drink as well. So we don't know what came first, absinthe, herb saint, Ohen, who knows? But I think all three at some point have been used in it. How it got its name, Obituary Cocktail, again, that's up to the mysteries of mankind. I did a lot of research on it. The only thing I can come close to is some newspaper account jokingly saying, if you drink too many of them, there'll be the death of you. I do want to do a shout out to Carrie McCafferty, who wrote a book called The Obituary Cocktail, The Great Saloons and Bars of New Orleans. It's a lovely book of photography. Carrie's a fantastic photographer of these bars, and a little bit of history of each of the bars. Some have recipes. She took the name the Obituary Cocktail from obviously the Café Lafitte, or at that time Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop. I mean, it's a title. So when I first started this book and I was telling people, the Obituary Cocktail, they're like, oh, you're redoing this book, isn't it? Or isn't it out already? Or something in that relation of like, why are you doing another Obituary Cocktail? I'm like, no, it's about the cocktail. But her book is fabulous as well, and it was published in 1998. It is still in print, and it's a classic. I think I've seen it on everyone's coffee tables. It's a great book. So we don't know how the name started. We don't know that we don't have the aha moment of when it was invented, which is fine. As I said, some cocktails you can trace back to an origin, and some you really can't. But we can, surmise through these accounts in the newspaper that the Obituary Cocktail was started at Café Lafitte's when it was Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop. Now, it was there for a long time. And in the early 50s, the owner of the building died, and the building went up for auction, and the new owners kicked the then owner, which was at that time just Tom Cappinger, out. The two other owners had gone off to their own ventures, doing other things. And I think at that point also Mary was back helping with him. But they had gone off to some of their own ventures as well. And so they found a bar a block away, named it Café Lafitte's in Exile. And the last night of the bar, and when the bar was located in Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop, they all supposedly took their stools and marched them down the street to the new place, and then started hanging out there. It eventually became a gay bar, and it is known as the oldest continuously open bar in the US, oldest continuously owned gay bar in the US. It's a mouthful. And it's they have a storied history. They took there's this portrait of like mother that was at at Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop when it was Café Lafitte's. They brought it to Café Lafitte's in Exile. Enrique Alvarez, I can't leave him out. The noted sculptor who has a garden in the city park, beautiful sculptures. He did a sculpture, Adam and Eve, which was is still in the garden of Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop, but he also designed some elements, the Eternal Fountain in Café Lafitte's in Exile. And they're both in business. not associated in any way. Um, Let me talk a little bit about the ingredients: gin, vermouth, and absinthe. And I will start with my favorite thing when I talk about this drink and absinthe, and the drink is vermouth. Uh, if I don't know if you can tell on the screen, it's got kind of a chilled, that thing that happens when you take something that's chilled and you bring it out of the refrigerator. Uh, refrigerate your vermouth. Like once you open the vermouth, it's a fortified aromatized wine. It's a wine. Just think of it as a wine. And after you open wine, what happens to wine? It starts degrading after it hits the air. And so the moment that happens, you put in the refrigerator. It has a certain time, term that it'll still be good. Don't be like my parents and countless other parents who would have parties, get the vermouth because someone wanted a martini, and stick it in the back of the cabinet, only to pull it back out, 6 months, a year later, and it tastes disgusting. And I think for my generation at least, we used to go into our parents' liquor cabinet when they weren't home and, sort of experiment. And we always, you'd always pull out the really old vermouth, and that started the whole long line of not liking vermouth. A lot of places don't know how to store the vermouth. So I'll go into bars and I'll check out, like, is there vermouth behind the bar or refrigerated? Now, if it's a high volume bar, of course they're kind of probably going to keep it out just for a little bit. But you need to refrigerate it. And again, after a certain time period, you're going to have to not use it. Now, it's happened to me. I have bought the large bottle of vermouth before and not used all of it. It's wonderful at cooking. So, it's not a total waste if you don't go through it um, fast. You also can buy a smaller bottle of vermouth. And again, the same thing happening. You have to use it within a certain time period. Uh, I was not as obvious a vermouth aficionado, and Brian Diaz of the NOLA Drink Show was the one who convinced me that a vermouth versatility and nuances, and whereas once a very dry, which means a martini, which is like basically chilled gin for some people, or chilled vodka if you're a vodka drinker, and just maybe a slight wash of vermouth for some. I like a little kick of vermouth in mine if I'm just drinking a martini, and it goes with the Obituary Cocktail as well. There's certain brands that are great. You have the Martini Rossi, the Dolan. You want to use the extra dry or dry. There's two other. There's this a Blanco, which I haven't tried yet with this, to be honest, and then the sweet, the red vermouth. And I did have it. I liked it, didn't love it. Again, like most cocktails, how you make it and where you get it and how you order it will determine sometimes how you like it. Not everyone likes the same type of cocktail. For example, Obituary Cocktail, I like the light absinthe. Ted Bro, who was a great help with the absinthe chapter, who is very instrumental with getting among the people getting absinthe legal in the US, and is the man who created this fabulous absinthe. Uh, he likes it absinthe heavy. So it can run the gamut. You just gotta have to figure it yourself. Another important element is the gin, and I'm pulling out a Ford's gin, and I will do a shout out to Simon Ford, who is the creator of this, and brand ambassador, and Brown-Forman's Marshall Farr, who were a great help with my gin chapter. Because when I started writing about each of these ingredients, I now know why gin has complete books about it, because it is a very, very, very storied history, very complicated history, very detailed history, and they're still discovering things to this day about gin. And so, how do you summarize, what could be probably a 400-page book about gin into a few hundred words? So it wasn't easy in picking up the highlights from it. But I do a nice. Simon liked it what I did, so thank you, Simon. But you want to do it with a London dry gin or a Plymouth gin. You don't necessarily want to do it with a Hendrix, but I've tried it with a Hendrix, which is a floral gin, and I've liked it. Again, it's a matter of taste. The absinthe, again, you can go with super expensive stuff. but I've also done it, and I'm going to do a demonstration of the drink today with absinthe ordinaire. Um, I haven't opened this yet, so I'm not quite there opening it. This is open. So, other parts of the chapter, because it was the obituary cocktail, was I delved a little bit into the death traditions of New Orleans, and again, that's another topic in which you have, books and books and books and books about it. And I just really focused on death traditions. It's very, very interesting about, how the above ground tombs were came about to be in New Orleans. It actually has a very European background, but it also relates to the Indians in New Orleans. I'm having a blank. I'm honestly blanking. That's why I have the book here to look. But the Native Americans, and I'm trying to remember which tribe. I apologize. I don't have my glasses on. I don't memorize this stuff. So sometimes the Choctaw. Thank you for your patience. The Choctaw used to have build mounds, pyres for their dead, and then after the dead had disintegrated, decomposed, they had bone pickers who have longer fingers who would pick the remaining flesh off the body, take the bones and put them in an area where they were buried, which if you know anything about the tombs in New Orleans, they're constantly being recycled for different family members that come in, and the bones go in the bottom of the tomb. I also talk about jazz funerals as well as a really big part of the cultural fabric of the city. Second lines, part of that is second lines, jazz funerals. We talk about the brass bands very briefly as well. Again, and James, who's here today, also pointed out that I have a big resource section in the back of the book because I thought it was important for people to, if they were interested to know more about these death traditions in New Orleans and these alcohol, to have really good, legitimate sources to get good information because a lot of times there's not great information, and sometimes it's hard to. Sometimes there's too much information, so it's hard to focus on what you want to read about. One of the other chapters, this is the funnest chapter, but the hardest chapter to do was stiff competition, which is where I asked various bartenders to create other deathly named cocktails. And so I went to let me see, I went to Cure, who also gave me a recipe for the obituary cocktail, and they gave me the Corpse Survivor. I went to the Gilded Perch, which gave me the Corpse Bride. And I'm actually doing an event with them this Saturday, August 16th from 4 to 6. It's a book signing of the Obituary Cocktail and my first book, The Café Brûlot. We will not be making these. They do make them in December. So look, check into the Gilded Perch website and Facebook page in December to find out what dates they're making the Café Brûlot. But they will be making the Obituary Cocktail and the Corpse Bride, which is a lovely combination, which you're going to have to find out when you get there or buy the book. And a few other cocktails, and I will have both books on hand to sign. So, but anyway, back to the Gilded Perch gave me the Corpse Bride. The Garden District Bookshop, which has always been a great resource. All the bookstores in New Orleans are great resources, but they were initially my first enthusiast for these books, and they came up with The Vampire's Kiss. It was inspired by Anne Rice because the Garden District Bookshop was her home bookstore back in the day. And then I have Fives gave me a recipe for the obituary cocktail. And then I'm going to cheat and look at the other cocktails. Jessica Harris. This wasn't from a bar. The zombie, I got the recipe from Jessica Harris, who is a noted culinary historian. And I got it from her a book about rum. So obviously she also does cocktail history as well. But she had a show on Netflix recently, High on the Hog, based on her book. Let me see. Well, I also did the Resurrection, courtesy of the Southern Food and Beverage Museum, which is a fabulous museum that covers a lot of food and drink history in New Orleans through their national national beverage museum, which is within SoFab, is what you call it. And they have a great section about absinthe in there. So if you're an absinthe fan, definitely go by Southern Food and Beverage Museum to see that mini exhibition. The Kill Devil Cocktail, which is from Columns, one of my favorite places to go to in New Orleans. And then the Esprit de Corpse, which is Delachaise, courtesy of Evan Hayes. Evan, if you're out there, Evan, hello. There's Death in the Afternoon, which I discovered through this book, and I love. Not necessarily like I don't want to die in the afternoon, but I do like the cocktail. And it's a combination of absinthe and champagne. It's fabulous. That was contributed by Beryl Pruth. And I think I got everyone. I have about 4 recipes for the Obituary Cocktail in there. I have one from Cure. I have one from Jewel of the South. Cure adds orange bitters to the combination. So you're getting gin, vermouth, absinthe, and orange bitters. Has a nice kick to it. Then you have Jewel of the South, and you have gin, vermouth, absinthe, but they do a bar spoon of cream de menthe over it, which adds another completely different flavor profile in it. Then Café Lafitte gave me an obituary cocktail recipe, and they use a slightly sweeter vermouth, which I actually, I liked it. And Fives has given me an obituary cocktail as well. They're all fabulous bars in the city. You can generally find the drink at any place that you can get a good gin martini. I like, but not everyone has absinthe, so Lob use herb saint in its place. Elysian Bar does that. Haven't had it with Uzo and Uzo, Ohen in its place. Not yet. I do also recommend, and I bring this up in the book, is that the you don't want to replace because of the licorice flavor, kind of that like anise flavor that you give anise and herb saint and Ohen. That doesn't mean you want to replace that with sambuca or ouzo or anything that got that heavy flavor. It will totally alter the tenor of the drink. It's also made with 2 different types of anise. The star anise is in the sambucas. The green anise is in the absinthe and herb saint. I think some formulations of absinthe may have some star anise, but it's definitely not the dominant flavor of the liquor. I guess it's now time for me to do a demo of my drink. So I'm gonna push back the camera a little bit, and because I don't know if I can't do this sitting down. So I'm gonna push this back, showcase my obligatory author bookcase background, and I think is a law that we all have to have a bookcase background. I do have more books, just where I am right now is where it's just the bookcase of the moment. All right, let me adjust the camera a little bit. I don't know, I'm gonna have to do this like this. All right, so this morning, all right, so I have one of these little glass beaker containers. Want to do shout out to the swag of Crafted. Crafted is a craft cocktail event at Alice Beach. This year it is from November 12th to 16th. The Alice Beach, if you don't know, is in the Florida Panhandle along 30A. It's a fabulous event, and I will be the kickoff event. I will be doing and talking about Obituary Cocktail there, doing we're gonna have a nice bartender making that drink, and then we're also going to be doing a demo of the Cafe Brûlot. Michael Sichel is on board with that, but he has a crazy schedule, but someone will be making it. So you can start with this, which I had a hard time finding this morning because, sometimes you just can't find stuff. So I panicked and I pulled out the oversized mason jar, which is me saying like sometimes you don't have to have the exact bar material to do it. The only one I would say would be the Cafe Brûlée. You do have to have certain like equipment to make it. So I have this. So I'm gonna put some ice in it. A very long bar spoon, some Hendrick's gin swag from Tales of the Cocktail. Tales of Cocktails in June in New Orleans. And that's another fun event. If you're a cocktail aficionado, it's fabulous. It just happened. I'm at the point of just pulling the ice out with my fingers, but I think people gross out, but you're not drinking it, I am. So put some ice in here. And then let's get the gin open. We got some gin, Ford's gin. It's a great gin, London Dry. And where is my shot glass? All right, we got the shot glass. Um, Shout out to the crew of Spank from Crew de Vue. That used to be my sub crew that I was in. Again, it's not, you don't have to, you just use whatever you have on hand. And if you don't have a shot glass, just do it how you think how much 2 ounces is going to be. So I do two. Some do less. I like my gin. And gin is something wonderful to discover. I did not drink gin until I started this book, and I've now switched from vodka to gin. There's so many different flavors of gin. It's amazing, and I'm glad I switched. All right, and then I'm going to do a little bit of vermouth. So I'm going to use a different shot glass. This is actually officially a whiskey tot. Don't tell my Scottish grandma. Okay, so a little bit of that. Now I am going to do, instead of pouring the absinthe in, which some people do, I'm going to spray the glass. Got this off of Amazon. I am going to use, I have a martini glass, or this is sort of a modified, it's a wine glass, but it's smaller than a wine glass. Got it in Paris. I don't know. All right, so I'm probably not doing this right. So you can spray the absinthe in it. If you're like a newbie to absinthe, you want to sort of test it out. This is a good way of doing it rather than putting it into the drink. So you fill this up, you fill this up, you fill this up, you fill this up. Stir it up some more. This probably won't fit. This is an oversized martini glass, so I'm not sure if this will fill it or not. All right, almost. And then I got the lemon twist. All right, got a lemon twist. And then it's time to sip. Let's see. Ooh, I've done a little less vermouth. So I did a little bit like a 3/4 thing vermouth. But I like it. It's tasty. I can't drink all of it because I have to go back to work. I do have a day job. So anyway, that is that. James, the LC Press's fabulous marketing director, also, I think I already said this, but wanted me to talk about the resource guide in the back. I put together a big resource guide of where to go, what bars to go see in New Orleans, resources for more about gin, absinthe, products, books to read. Again, this was a very fun one to research. Newsbreak was where I did most of my research online for newspapers in New Orleans. The Historic New Orleans Collection is an amazing resource. Southern Food and Beverage Museum is a resource. New Orleans Public Library is amazing. I couldn't read some of the newspaper that I was looking online, so I went down there, and they have that microfiche that you do. Like if you're old like me, like we had to do microfiche back in the day, and they still have the microfiche, but they still have a lot of the original materials. And the city archives is an amazing resource as well, which they have records going back to when the city was founded. That's in a separate room, and you kind of have to get approval to go into that room. But I remember researching something for Cafe Brulot and coming across an assessor's through one of the big old books where Marie Laveau's family was, if I remember correctly, selling the house. So you never know what you find, not related to what you're supposed to be researching, but it's a lot of fun. I'm a history geek, obviously. I like to say I'm a social historian. But I do geek out with going to libraries and archives and doing research. I think I'm done. James, is there anything else you want me to bring up?
No, I think you did a great job. Um, this is the one time where, well, maybe not the one time, but one of the times where a virtual event may not be as good as an in-person event when you have drinks involved.
I know.
But thank you for sharing all that with us, Sue. It was a wonderful introduction. How about can you talk a little bit about where the obituary cocktail falls, basically like in the hierarchy of New Orleans drinks? I mean, the iconic New Orleans cocktail series, but it seems like this is one that is not maybe as well known as some of the others. Is that just a misconception on my part, or would you
It's
say that's
it's
true?
it's not a misconception. Honestly enough, in the resurgence of cocktails and the cocktail movement, which has actually been going on for a while, it somehow has gotten lost. I mean, everyone pretty much knows a corpse survivor. I don't think the zombie ever went away, but this whole resurgence of craft cocktails and different cocktails, it really got lost. Now, I will say this: back in 2017 or 18, one of the articles, Jewel of the South contributed the obituary cocktail and talked about it and the recipe, but nothing came of it. And then just before my book came out, there was a guy on TikTok who did the cocktail as well. So it's interesting. It's not in a lot of bar menus. When I did the book and was talking to people, a few of the bars have put it on their menu. I do know now Fives has it on its menu. Uh, and Fives, if you're not familiar with the location, it's in the Pentalba building. It's in the lower Pentalba building, or if you know it as like the Pentalba owned by the state, um, facing Jackson Square. And they're great people. The person who owns that also owns Columns on St. Charles Avenue. And you can ask for it and like Pay knows when I'm at. It's not on the menu, but you can ask for it. So, as I said, if you go to a classic cocktail place or your neighborhood bar, uh, Oak and Ale, which is on my neighborhood, it's technically a brewery, but they know how to make a really good gin martini. They don't have the absinthe, and that's pretty or the herb saint. That's really kind of like stops it from being, I think, more popular is the
That
absinthe of herb saint
yeah,
ingredient.
that's what I was going to ask you if
Yeah.
that was the reason, the lack of the one ingredient, the kind of
Hmm.
uh but it's kind of ironic because what better metaphor for the city, and a city that celebrates death the way New Orleans does than this obituary cocktail. It's almost like it should be the official drink of the city, given the role that death and celebrating death and the macabre have in
Hmm.
the city. Um, but it struck me that in the decade after the 1984 World's Fair, particularly starting in the 90s, you had this resurgence in this whole haunted history, macabre kind of elements of New Orleans. But then the craft cocktail resurgence also comes about at that same time, and this is kind of the merging of the two here. Uh,
Hmm.
do
I
you
hope it goes on
see?
more menus. I hope it goes on more menus and it takes over and it becomes more well known in New Orleans and outside of New Orleans. I'm actually trying to actually meeting tonight with someone who's a Natchez and trying to do something around Halloween and sort of tie it all in. Also with the Cafe Brûlée, which is the flaming coffee cocktail drink, and the cup, which was designed specifically for that drink, has a devil on it. So for some reason, I'm doing all these like deathly cocktails or things with symbolism like that. But I do hope it's interesting how it hasn't. I think honestly, when people think of drinks of New Orleans, the classic ones is the Sazerac, and Tim McNally wrote a great book for you all about that. People also bring out I would say, the Ramus Jean Fizz, which is even harder to make. And I think that lives on, that's very specialty, but I think that has sort of this intrigue that to it because it's so complicated, it's so time consuming to make. And that book, The Ramus Gin Fizz, just came out at the same time mine did. So y'all are covering a great variety of drinks in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think we still have the grasshopper to
Hmm.
come, and I think we're doing the hurricane as well. Um, yeah, it seems like a lot of the people that come to the city are more enamored, let's say, with some of the more convenience drinks like the hurricanes and the
Hmm.
daiquiris and the hand grenade. uh,
Yeah.
which I actually made the argument that we need to include the hand grenade in the series because of its impact on tourism. The way Bourbon Street was kind of transformed after the World's Fair, and the Tropical Isle being kind of at the forefront of that whole
Mhm.
transition, for better or worse.
I mean,
Speak.
I mean,
Along those same
there's an
lines,
argument that could be said like the flaming Dr. Pepper shot was invented in New Orleans too. So and at the oh God, the gold mine. So I mean, there's like this, there's a lot. I did an article for the Preservation Resource Center where I did a little brief thing about the cocktails. There's like 11 New Orleans cocktails and that and then some that are, like the flaming Pepper shot. It was either, create the gold mine saloon or this bar in Texas. Which is kind of, versus the grasshopper, where we all know was invented at Two Jacks. So whoever writes that book's gonna have a fun time with that.
yeah, and we also have in the series the French 75, which it wasn't invented here, but
Mhm.
it kind of is it has a place here in New Orleans,
It was
but
perfected here. I like to say like
perfected here. Yeah.
perfected
Uh,
here. Brandy Milk Punch is another one that has origins elsewhere. That's in your series. Again, we
sure.
put
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, along the lines of we talked, I mentioned tourism a little bit. I know they have culinary tours in the city, and I'm sure that do they have any high-end cocktail tours that are happening in the city?
Well, I do know Elizabeth Pierce, who I think is writing your Hurricane book, does cocktail tours. I do know and I unfortunately I do not remember the name of her company. I apologize, Elizabeth, if you're watching. She is on Instagram on Drink and Learn, and she does a great job with it. And I am sure there's some. Oh, I think there's some. I think Two Chicks does maybe some cocktail tours.
Yeah.
But I did not. I did. Those are the only ones I know of. But I'm sure there
And
are.
I'm sure during Tales of the Cocktail they probably
Yeah.
have lots of things like that.
Yeah.
And to the uninitiated or the uninebriated, most of the tours that you can take in the city do stop at various bars, but we're
Yeah.
talking a very specific kind of
Yeah.
cocktail bars.
Yeah.
Um, well, tell us what else are you working on? What do you have in the pipeline? I know you're constantly working on different things.
Well, I will be honest, absolutely trying to figure out what my next step is. Because as I was society editor of the city and got to see the rich this is a horrible a trope, but rich tapestry of all different sides of New Orleans society. I was lucky. I'm not from here. I'm from Connecticut originally. Came down for college, then moved back to New York, and then came back 30 years ago. Nursing a broken heart and thought it was going to be a few years, and then just decided to stay because why not? And so yeah, I'm sort of formulating something to do with New Orleans. I'm trying not to make it, which I think is keeping me from actually moving forward, is I don't want to make it a lot of writing about New Orleans, and I need to be careful about saying this because some people really like this kind of like New Orleans cliche kind of stuff. Or it has turned into New Orleans cliches. There's that genre of people who grew up in New Orleans and they have to, write about their dysfunctional Southern family in the Garden District. And that's fine. Like that's what you want to write about it. But I just think that's been overdone. I'm not gonna write for all the vampire lovers are out there. I'm not gonna write about vampires. There's some great books about vampires. Anne Rice. Love Anne Rice. Her books are fantastic. So it's just I'm trying to work past like I start going. I'm like, no, that's too much of a cliche. I can't can't talk about voodoo. That kind of stuff. And so I've got to push past that. Haven't figured that out yet.
Did you worked with Philip Collier, didn't you, on some of his books? Was Making New
Bill Collier,
Orleans?
yes, I did. One's behind me. Let me go
Was
pull it
it
up.
Missing New Orleans or Making New
No, no,
Orleans?
no. This one. I worked on
Yeah,
Making
Making New
New Orleans.
Orleans.
Making
His
New
books are
Orleans.
beautiful.
Oh, I've been working with Philip for almost 30 years in different capacities. And he self-publishes his book. And he's an art director for people who don't know Philip. But he comes up with these great ideas. He came out one of his earlier books is called Mixing New Orleans, which is about cocktails in New Orleans, which I've used more as a resource for Cafe Brulot. He didn't have anything about Obituary Cocktail in it, hence it's a lost cocktail. But this one was about products that were made in New Orleans, and I focused on fashion, which was you didn't know how much, what a leader in fashion New Orleans was. And then, New Orleans was the absinthe capital of the US back in the day in the 19th century. So before it got banned. And then I find it interesting that, in its place, Herb Saint, which doesn't have the ingredient through home, which is what got absinthe banned. But yeah, Philip does the mixing New Orleans, and then he's done this. So
He
he's
had another book that was a large, oversized paperback book that was, and it's got a lot of cocktails. It seems like he was showcasing cocktails in his works.
that's
Uh,
mixing New Orleans. Yeah, that was. I don't have that. Another good book. I'm going to bring this out, even though it's not LSU Press. Philip self-publishes, but this is another great resource as
oh
well.
yeah, with Cure.
The Cure book of Neil Bodenheimer, the owner of Cure.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a lot of great. There's a burgeoning market for cocktail
mhm.
books, and just like the city, Tales of the Cocktail has really put New Orleans on the map as a destination, in terms of cocktail culture.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's all we have. Thank you for such a great presentation today.
Well,
And
thank
just
you.
to remind everyone, we have a discount code in the comment section for 40% off on the book if you order through the LSU website. And any closing remarks, Sue?
Actually, I like it. I like to drink now that it's been sitting a little bit. But I can't drink anymore. I've got to go back to work. I'm very honored that you've had me write two books for the iconic New Orleans cocktail series. And for people who have joined in very, very late, I wrote the Obituary Cocktail and the Café Brûlot, which is a flaming coffee cocktail drink, which came out in 2021. But they've also, you have a book about the Sazerac, the Absinthe Frappe, the Vieux Carré, the Brandy Milk Punch, the French 75, the Raw Fignac, which I haven't had yet. I'm dying to have one. And the Ramus Gin Fizz. Have I missed any, James?
Brandy Milk Punch,
The
French
amount,
75.
yeah, I did those two.
Yeah, I
The
think
Raw
we
Fignac.
that covers them. I think we're
I
up to
think
about
cover it.
nine now.
Yeah, okay, nine. And there's more coming, people. So if you love cocktails and want to know more about them, I think it's a great series to have. And it's focused. They're all focused and they offer something a little bit different for everyone, but they're all very solid. I love reading them.
Okay, well, thank you, Sue.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have Q&A? No questions? I'm
Yep, no, that was it. We had a lot of people comment on celebration and congratulations, everything on the book. We'll go through those. We can see those online. But
okay,
thank
great.
you for spending this time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.